to prepare.
Hmm.
So only the topics that were mentioned, I prepared only those.
So, see, I'll tell you one thing. For example, see, there's a list of topics, okay, for every chapter that we have over here. So, for example, if in the topic I had given you the syllabus, inheritance of one gene, inheritance of two genes, and sex determination, right? Other than this, there was nothing else mentioned, right?
Nothing else.
Hmm. So, there was no chromosomal theory also mentioned, and there was
No,
no
ma'am,
recombination that was also
no,
mentioned, right?
ma'am. That was introduction part was mentioned. So introduction in that only chromosomal theory was there, right?
No, definitely not. Introduction part is a completely different part wherein I explain you genotype, phenotype, all of those things. This is what I saw in your paper also, something that made me really, really upset with that. Show you. This is the part that you see right in front of you. This is the introductory part wherein I taught you the meaning of some terms that are there in this chapter. Whether it is what is inheritance, variation, phenotype, genotype, these important terms and everything. This is the introduction part, right? After the introduction part was done, then came monohybrid cross, which is the inheritance of one gene. After this was done, then came exceptions of Mendelian laws. Okay, this one is before what? It is before the inheritance of two genes, right? So if I have given two topics in that way and the subtopic is not mentioned, it is given, like it is said that these things will definitely come. How could I pick on topics? I couldn't write because this chapter has so many topics, more than 10 topics, isn't it? So it's not possible to write now, like each and every topic's name. So from for the next time also, you understand this thing. Like for example, just like this only. If I have given you inheritance of one gene, that is monohybrid cross, okay, and then after that I haven't mentioned test cross or I haven't mentioned exceptions of Mendelian laws, okay, but directly I have given you what? Inheritance of two genes. But this is like already understood that whatever comes in between those two topics, it's already there in your notes, right? You have the
Yes.
exact same thing you have in your notebook. So all of that would come, no matter what. Understood? And
Yes, ma'am.
chromosomal theory of inheritance that you're talking about, it comes so later on. It comes here. And even I haven't mentioned that. So after dihybrid cross and before sex determination, up until now, chromosomal theory is going on. After that, there comes linkage and recombination, and then there comes sex determination, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
starting from dihybrid cross and in between, like the last topic, that is sex determination, there are few other subtopics. Linkage recombination is there, then chromosomal theory is there. So in the question, like in the answer sheet, you were able to solve recombination question. You were able to solve chromosomal theory. But what about the rest?
Ma'am, up until sex determination, I
Hmm.
studied because I
Okay.
had a one look at topic, so I just understood up until sex determination it's there.
Okay, no problem. See, for future, I'm telling you this one thing, that if there is like certain topics mentioned and certain things are not there in the topic. Okay. So what you do is that whatever is there, you study. Or whatever topics have been taught, you just have a brush through because you study so well in the class. So it's basically no problem to you. Understood?
Yes, ma'am, but mutation is later on, I suppose.
Mutation is later on, but the mutation talks and everything has been discussed in between also. Getting my point? This is what I'm trying to tell you. That since this chapter was long, long over, isn't it? It was over way back, and then this test came along. So you're supposed to study the whole entire thing. That syllabus that I give you, it is because the chapter wasn't completed, because I had pedigree analysis still left to teach you. That is why I didn't give full syllabus as the result. This thing syllabus. I only took
Yes.
some topics. So you've understood how the questions will be there. If there are two topics and you have to like you have to study, so all the subtopics that are coming in between or anything that I might have said in the class, that will also come. Getting my point? And even if, let's just say, by mistake, let's just say in any test or in any topic, I gave you some questions that were out of the syllabus. Okay. Maybe I gave you some question that was out of the chapter also. Like I have given you this principle of inheritance. Maybe by mistake, while making the question paper, I gave you some questions from the human reproduction. Let's just say I'm giving you an example. So, despite of all that, if it had been your school examination, would you write there that this was not taught to me, hence I'm not writing it? Would you write it there? Hmm? No,
No.
no, you won't. So one thing that I want to tell you is like the rest of the answers that you actually have written, they're flawless. Your answers, the way you write, it's like I couldn't cut marks anywhere. But because of those things that you write, I was so angry looking at your paper. First, I saw your answers. They were flawless. They were so nice answers. I was like, whatever language I teach you in, you literally you print it on the paper. That is something I love about a student. But then I saw this, not taught, not taught. I was like, so remember this, like I want you to take the test over here as you take the test in your school. In your boards examination, in your school examination, you will never, even if a teacher has given you something else, even if a teacher has put physics question in bio paper, then also you will never write that this is a different subject, isn't it? You're getting my point. So it's just that you take it like a proper, actual, real test. Then only you're going to develop that habit. Why we make you like give all these tests so that your topic becomes so strong that when it actually gets asked you in real life, you'll be able to solve all the questions, isn't it? That's the whole point of this. So my thing to you is that you take it seriously. If something ever gets slips out, so it's like everyone's a human, we make mistakes, right? But now you've understood the pattern that whatever I would have taught you, that has a probability of coming. Even the teachers at school do this, isn't it? Whatever has been discussed in the class, that will come. Don't the teachers say like this?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
it's a common thing. Understood? Despite of all of this, you have performed extremely well. Your answers, the things that you have written, like chromosomal theory. Acha, one more thing. Like the paper had 2 marks questions, no? Even though your questions were flawless, but don't write 5 marks things in a 2 marks question. Understood? You should know how to concise your answer. 2 marks doesn't require big paragraphs, honestly. It requires one tiny paragraph more than enough.
Yes,
Five,
ma'am. I didn't know where to start and like how
huh?
to.
Because I've seen that in your paper. It's like you write it flawlessly. I don't have any problem with your language, the way you start your answers. Other than that, the language that you form in the answers, whatever, there's no grammatical mistakes, there's no punctuation mistake, there's no normal mistakes are not there at all. But I have seen that you just go with the feel like, bhejao. Whatever I know, I will give this paper. Ma'am, see, I know every. That's nice, but that's required for 5 marks. Listen, for 2 marks, concise manner, like whatever you know, because this is also a trick, like why sometimes people feel like what people do, like I have also seen in the question paper, teachers just to assess you, they will give those kind of questions that do not have a lot to write in it for 5 marks. And you'll be like, this answer isn't that lengthy. How should I write it for 5 marks? So that is also a test only. Then how would you elaborate in such a way that you can give an explanatory answer? And then the teacher can also give you like 5 or 10 marks worthy long question in 2 marks. So just to see that how will you concise your knowledge into that one tiny paragraph, whatever you know, how will you tell it in a very brief manner. Understood? So whenever it is a 2 mark, you do not have to write page full of answer. You have to write a para or so. That's more than enough. A descriptive briefing para, more than enough. But if it is a 5 marks, go crazy. I will never mind about it. Go crazy. Write as much as you want. The teacher will never cut your marks. Understood?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, is there any word limit? Like 200 words, 180 words, like that?
Word limit, I'd have to see. I don't know how many words are supposed to. I measure it with paras or pages, but it's like different for different people. Like there are different teachers that set different kinds of word limit. Let's see, word limit of 2 marks question. According to CBSE, okay, word limit for 2 marks question is 30 to 40 words. That is basically 2 to 3 lines. That is why I put it in paras. Okay, you write one para that has probably 5 lines, 6 lines, more than enough. Okay, if you can't write it in a para, make points. That is also perfect.
Bullet points is enough.
Hmm?
Bullet points.
Yeah, understood. Okay, other than that, let's see the word marks for 3. 3 marks question. If 50 to 80 words for 3 marks according to CPS. But in my opinion, 2 paras are more than enough for 3. Okay. And then 5 marks. According to CBSE, word limit, it's not there properly, but yeah, a big para, or you can write 4 small paras like that. Okay, so yes, what I'm saying is that the way you write your answers, you could write your answers like that, but just for 5 marks. For 2 marks, concise it, make it very, very, very small. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what is the last thing you've written?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am, about DNA.
About the DNA. So we were seeing that like this Erwin Chargaff was also done.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm.
It was done.
Now let us see the features of the double helical structure, which was given by Watson and Crick. So what they explained with the double helical model is that DNA is made up of 2 polynucleotide chains. Okay, 2 chains are there in the DNA which runs anti-parallelly, meaning one chain is going to go from 5 prime to 3, the other is going to go from 3 prime to 5. Okay, so it's like going to be opposite polarity is going to be there. 5 to 3, 3 to 5. The backbone of the double helical structure or the backbone of the DNA is made up of sugar and phosphate, like you saw in the diagram, and the bases are
Mhm.
projecting out. Then the pairing of the base is always adenine pairs up with thymine with 2 hydrogen bonds. Guanine pairs up with cytosine with 3 hydrogen bonds. And these 2 chains, they are coiled in a right-handed fashion, meaning the clockwise turning is there, not the anti-clockwise. It will always be clockwise. That is why right-handed fashion. Now, one turn of this helix, okay, one turn of the helix is called as the pitch of the helix. Okay, so this pitch of the helix, the dimension of it is 3.4 nanometer. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
And 1 nanometer is equal to 10 to the power minus 9 meter. Imagine how tiny it is. Right? Now, in that one turn of DNA helix, 10 base pairs are presented. Like adenine, thymine, guanine, all of that, 10 of them are present in one turn. And the distance between the base pair, like distance between adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, all the base pair is 0.34 nanometer. So now you know the pitch of the helix, you know the distance between the base pair. Now, once a person has the knowledge, if I give you the number of base pairs, then accordingly you can calculate the length of the DNA. Okay, so the length of the DNA is equal to the total number of base pairs that are present in the DNA, and you multiply it with the distance between the base pair, like 0.34 nanometer. So you will get the length of the DNA. Understood?
Yes, ma'am. So in one pitch, there are only 10 base pairs.
Hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Then comes this topic about central dogma of molecular biology. Now tell me one thing, if in our body there is a need for any hormone to be synthesized, for any, you can say enzyme to be synthesized, or any synthesis of structure is done, what do you think happens in the body, according to you?
Changes.
Changes to happens, but how? What kind of change?
Um, Internal changes only take place if it's way too severe. It expresses in the phenotypic manner, but
Hmm. See, basically, in our body, okay, if we talk at the molecular level, so for the production of anything, if our body requires anything, mostly first for that that particular thing, protein will be synthesized. For example, if you need a hormone, first the protein that will make your body stimulate the production of hormone, that will be synthesized. So it's like a whole entire series of steps that happens to form the protein. And that is what is covered under central dogma of molecular biology. This is given by Watson and Crick, and they said that there is a unidirectional flow of information from the master DNA to the copy DNA. Now see, DNA, like for example, if this is the DNA strand, okay. Now you know about DNA replication. What is the meaning of it?
Yes, ma'am. DNA just replicates itself.
DNA replication is DNA replicates itself. Wow, very good. What
Ma'am,
do you
is it like chromosomal replication? Is
what
it
is the
like,
meaning of replication?
ma'am, during crossing over, does it happen?
What is the meaning of replication? What is the
Means
meaning of
copying.
copying, right? Making another copy, right? So DNA undergoes replication. So what happens is DNA is this topsy-turvy thing. This is curved. Now, while the replication has to take place, this to the helix, it basically opens a little bit. So like for example, if this is there, so it will open like this for this area, and then it will be continued later on. So this is, there is an opening. Now this and this, they are called as the parental DNA strand. Okay, they are parental DNA strand. Against these, one new DNA strand will be synthesized. Here also, one new DNA strand will be synthesized. So using the old DNA strands, new DNA strands are synthesized. And this process is what we call as DNA replication. Understood?
So, ma'am, the new DNA strand is inside the parental DNA, like
Uh-huh.
within that
Yeah, but
vicinity.
it becomes a different DNA later on. And so it's like new DNA strands are added, but in every new DNA, there is one old, one new, like that. It's like not entirely both the strands are going to be new. It's like the older one will always be there, and then the new one will be synthesized. This is replication of DNA in a nutshell. Understood? We will be studying this. Don't worry. I'm just giving you an overview. So here what happens is that the central dogma of molecular biology tells us that from the DNA could be made, and that process will be called as DNA replication, right? From DNA, new DNA is made. Now, from the DNA, RNA is also synthesized by the process of transcription, just like how replication is the name of a process, same way RNA formation process is called as transcription. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
And then ultimately from RNA, protein will be synthesized by the process called as translation.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is a unidirectional. Nowhere do you see that the arrow going backwards, isn't it? It's always going towards the protein, from the DNA up until the protein. It will never go backwards. This is true for all the organisms. Okay, humans, animals, plants, everyone, and even lower organisms. But there is one exception. Do you know anything about viruses? Now, what do you know about viruses? Any special thing?
Uh, they cause infections and spread.
True.
They are communicable.
Yes. What else? In terms of their structure, do you know anything?
No.
No. See, when central dogma of molecular biology was given, this was something that was applicable to every single organism. But then again, there came one exception with the help of which came another central dogma, but this time it was reverse central dogma. Central dogma was never reversed, right? It went only in the unidirectional flow. But reverse central dogma, this is an exception to the central dogma of molecular biology. This was reported in the year 1970 by the persons Temin and Baltimore. These are the surnames. So reverse central dogma, because they were the discovering, like people who actually discovered it. So it was also called as Teminism. on his name. Okay, so now there are some viruses that have RNA as their genetic material. Okay, those viruses can form DNA from RNA. So DNA from RNA. Understood? They can
Oh,
form
they're
DNA.
reversed.
They can form DNA from RNA using an enzyme that only they have. No one else has it. Only and only some RNA viruses have, and that enzyme is called as reverse transcriptase. So using that enzyme, the virus could convert the DNA from the RNA. They could synthesize it, right? So now the whole entire dogma would look something like this. From the RNA, DNA would be made. And that is what is called as reverse central dogma. Clear?
Ma'am, in central dogma, normally DNA was synthesized to be RNA, and that was further in made protein.
Hmm.
Is it?
Hmm.
So,
Yes.
ma'am, if RNA is making DNA, what is making protein? RNA is also making protein.
Yes. Will make protein also, and in places it will make DNA also. Okay, like
Yes, ma'am.
like in the next chapter, that is human health and disease, you will study this thing when we study about AIDS, the disease AIDS. In that is actually caused by a retrovirus only, which has this enzyme. So what it does is that as soon as that virus comes into the body of the human, they have RNA as their genome, right? And we have DNA as our genome. So what they do is that from their RNA, they make their DNA. And then they mix their DNA with our DNA just to cause infection in our body. Understood? So that is how the virus has developed that mechanism or developed that enzyme. So that is reverse central dogma. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So this RNA will be making the protein also, just like how it normally does. But despite that, it will go back also because it will be making DNA from RNA. This happens only in the case of virus. Clear? No other organs. Okay. Now comes the packaging of DNA helix. Doesn't it sound strange? Why do we need to package DNA? Right? DNA is DNA. Why do we need to package it? You will see how. The distance between the two base pairs usually is 0.34 nanometer, which we have already seen, right? It
Yes.
is 0.34 into 10 to the power minus 9th meter, if you write it in terms of meters. The length, if we calculate the length of the human diploid cell or the DNA of the human diploid cell. So the number of base pair in the diploid cell of human is 6.6 into 10 to the power 9 base pairs are there in a diploid cell, meaning having two sets of chromosomes. And we multiply it with the distance between base pair, ultimately we get 2.2 meters as the length of our DNA. Our DNA is 2.2 meters long. 2.2 meter. Okay. So have you seen your mother's dupatta or your dupatta? How long it is? Right? Dupattas are so long. They are usually 2 meter ka dupatta. Add 2 more. Right? 2.2 more. Right? So 2.2 meter. That is why I have converted it into meter for us to understand it better. So that long dupatta, that long DNA is there in our body. But what is the size of our nucleus? 10 to the power minus 6. 10 to the power minus 6 means 10 upon this is the size of our nucleus. It means that 0.0000001, isn't it? This is how
So,
tiny in terms of,
micrometers.
uh, this is how tiny our nucleus is. In terms of meter, if you write it, it would come out to be 0.000001 meter. And our DNA is 2 meters. So how will the
Ma'am,
DNA
how will
fit
it
in?
fit?
That is why we do the packaging. Understood? Basically what? If you have a bigger thing, you want to put it in a smaller space, either you shove it inside, isn't it? You make it a ball and you shove it inside, or you fold it and then you shove it. Right? Like how we do in our wardrobe. Whenever we have like dresses lying here and there and on that one designated dirty chair, what do we do? Take the clothes, shove it into the wardrobe. Same way, we're going to do that in order to fit the DNA into the nucleus, because the nucleus is nucleus is where the DNA is present.
Yes.
So in order to fit it inside, we do the packaging. Okay. But surprisingly, packaging happens in prokaryotes also. Despite them not having any nucleus, but still their DNA is also very long and it has to stay inside the cell. So that is why mostly DNA is like randomly arranged in prokaryotes. Now you already know that DNA in them will be scattered throughout the cell, isn't it? Why?
Yes. Ma'am, it's scattered because
Hmm.
is it present within the chromosomes?
Right now only I told you. Why
No,
is
ma'am,
the
it's present in the nucleus, but mm,
in prokaryotes the DNA is scattered throughout the cell? Why? In
oh,
prokaryotes,
ma'am, because they're prokaryotes, they don't have a wall.
uh, a wall, they don't have a nuclear membrane surrounding the nucleus, right? They don't have membrane bound nucleus, right?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
remember always that DNA is the negatively charged molecule. Whether prokaryote, whether eukaryote, DNA carries negative charge. It doesn't carry positive charge. Okay. So, if you want to wrap DNA around something, you need positive charge something, right? Then only negative positive will attract and the DNA will be wrapped or packed around like that. So we use
Yes.
charges like that. So DNA is held with some proteins that are positively charged in a region called as nucleoid. So in the case of prokaryotes, instead of a nucleus, they have a nucleoid, which is like the area which is containing the DNA. It's not surrounded by membrane, it's not surrounded by anything of that sort. It's just that the DNA is present confined to that area. Mostly it is scattered only, right? So the DNA in the nucleoid is organized in large loops that are held by proteins. So loose packaging happens in the case of prokaryotes. So in them also packaging has to take place. And for example, if this is a prokaryotic cell, so their DNA will be packaged around and sort of concentrated in this one area, and that will be called as a nucleoid. They don't have a nucleus, they don't have a membrane surrounding it. Understood?
So, ma'am, there will be just many nucleides or many large coiled
No.
structures present.
Nucleoids are like one nucleoid is going to be there. Whole entire DNA will be around there. We don't have multiple nucleoids. The region, like nucleoid is not a thing. Understood? Like how a membrane bound designated structures are there. It's not a thing, it's just a region that we call. Okay, it's a region. It's not an organelle, it's not anything. It's like a region, an area. Understood?
Yes,
Hmm?
ma'am.
But now we come on to the actual complex packaging that happens in the case of eukaryotes. Okay, because now we have to fit 2.2-meter long thing into a very, 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 very tiny space. So the this DNA organization or DNA packaging in the case of eukaryotes, it's very, very complex. And for that, what is used? Positively charged proteins are used here also, because DNA is yet again negatively charged only, but here the positively charged proteins, they have a name. The name of those proteins are histone proteins. Okay. Now these histone proteins, they are basic proteins. Okay. And you know that, okay, do you know what proteins are made up of?
Mm, mm,
No. Proteins are made up of amino acids. Like amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Okay, they are the building blocks. So the histones, they are rich in basic amino acids. Basic amino acids are the ones that carry positive charge in them. If you just, like after the class, if you just go back into your 11th book, 11th class NCERT book, therein you will find different types of amino acids, positive, negative, all of that. basic acidic. So lysine and arginine, these are the names of those amino acids that are making the histones. And these amino acids, they carry positive charge. Okay, that is why the histones are positively charged. Clear?
Ma'am, these make the positively charged histones, so they themselves are positively charged.
Lysine and arginine, they are basic amino acid because they carry positive charge. And thereby, they are making the histone. So histone will be positively charged. Understood?
Yes.
Now the histones, they are organized. Now what happens is that like several histones, like normally histones are like this. One histone, another histone, another histone. They are circular proteins. But during the packaging of DNA, 8 histones, they come together and they make this structure called as histone octamer. 8 of them coming together and making an aggregate. Understood? So the histones, they are organized to form a unit of 8 molecules called as histone octamer. And then have you seen that top lectu thing that's called as lectu? Like not in real, you might have seen in pictures also the circular thing on which the rope is wrapped and then you pull it and then the top dances or spins around.
Yes,
Right?
ma'am.
That is called as lectu only, isn't it? Or
Yes.
top. So same way, histones are like that top, and the DNA is wrapped around that top like this. The wrapping of the DNA around the histone octamer happens. Understood?
So, histones do not have DNA within themselves.
Histones are proteins. Histones
So,
are
ma'am,
proteins.
the histone octamer is it like is it able to cover 2.2 meters of
There are
DNA?
several histone octamers. So I'll show you a picture. There are several histone. That is why, see, if you think about tiny histone, DNA wrapped, then still this long piece will be left. Then again, one more. Then again, that is why they make eight aggregates. So that they'll be a little bigger in size and they will have more DNA to be wrapped around them. Understood? So the negatively charged DNA wraps around the positively charged histone octamer to form a structure that is called as nucleosome. So when the DNA is wrapped around the histone octamer, we call it as a nucleosome. Clear? And this
Yes.
nucleosome, it contains around 200 base pairs of DNA. Imagine, so like one loop has 10 base pairs, but when the DNA wraps around nucleosome, 200 base pairs are wrapped around. So you can imagine what part of the DNA would have wrapped, isn't it? Then
Ma'am,
from
Ma'am, the DNA wrapped around the histone octamer is called nucleosome, or DNA wrapped around one histone.
no histone octamer. Even DNA will never wrap around one histone. Histones will make an aggregation called as histone octamer, and then only the DNA will wrap around.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm? So from the nucleosome, now see the packaging keeps on happening. Since the DNA is 2.2 meters long, the packaging doesn't stop then and there. It keeps on happening and happening and happening. Okay. So from the nucleosome, after further packaging, chromatin is formed. Have you heard about chromatin?
Yes, ma'am. They form chromatids. They form chromosomes. Then.
Very good. So chromatin, these are the entangled structure, right? That is just when the cell is not dividing in that case. And then from the chromatin, the chromosomes are made which have 2 chromatids in them. Understood? So this is what basically happens. So, and then this is like the basic level packaging of DNA. Further, high level packaging of DNA also happens, and that would require some additional proteins other than the histone, which will be called as non-histone chromosomal protein. Meaning packaging in terms of chromosomes will require different set of proteins. Here, wait, I'll show you the picture.
Ma'am, can you repeat the chromosome part or chromatid part?
See, first, like the nucleosome is made. Now, from the nucleosome stage, chromatin stage would come. Chromatin stage would be looking like long structures having histone octamers arranged on it. Understood? So it would look like a bead on a string, and they would look like that. And then from the chromatin, then the chromosome will be made, which will be made up of two chromatids. Understood? So this is how the packaging is. See, DNA is there on the right hand side, this one. DNA is there.
Yes,
DNA
ma'am.
starts to get wrapped around the histone octamer, these ones, the aggregations that you see, right? And those, let me change the color of this ink. See this thing. This is the histone octamer on which the DNA is wrapping, like, right? Further and further, more wrapping is happening, and this structure is what we call as nucleosome. Further, when these nucleosome will undergo further wrapping, they will form the chromatin structure. Supercoiling will happen, and later on, it
Ma'am,
will
which
form
one
the
is chromatin?
chromatin will be these structures, the ones that you see here in the circle.
Okay, ma'am. So supercoils form chromatin.
Huh. So from the nucleosome, coils will be made. Then further coiling will make it supercoiling, and then the chromatins will be made from which the chromosomes will be. Understood? And these chromosomes, they will be made up of chromatids. So this is how the packaging of DNA is done. Clear? And remember that two chromatids, they are joined together in the center by this centromere that joins them together. Now we were talking about the chromatin. So the chromatin, while it is existing, it can exist in two ways. Okay, heterochromatin and euchromatin. Now see, when the chromatin region is loosely packed, we'll call it as euchromatin. But when it is tightly packed, we'll call it as heterochromatin. Clear? See
Ma'am,
this.
how does that loosely pack?
See, if they are sparsely arranged, like before being completely tightly arranged, they are sparsely arranged. So that region has a name. We call it as euchromatin. And when it becomes compact and come together and becomes tightly arranged, then we call it as heterochromatin.
Ma'am,
Clear?
so from the
Hmm.
supercoiling phase itself, they are not very tightly packed, euchromatin.
Huh. And then they become further tightly packed and become heterochromatic. Clear?
So, ma'am, in chromosomes, do they exist as euchromatin or heterochromatin?
No. Only in the chromatin stage.
Oh,
Because in the
so in
chromosome, they'll be having a different organization. So this chromatin stage has the hetero and euchromatin. Okay.
yes, ma'am.
When you'll be writing the notes, you make this diagram. You can't make this one because it's really lengthy and big, but you make this diagram. Now see, uh, you know that to visualize anything, we stain them. We stain the cells, we stain the organelle, we stain the DNA. So as to visualize it, because it's mostly colorless and it's mostly very small that we can't even see it properly. So we stain. Now there are some structures that would take up a lot of stain, and then there are some structures that will not take up a lot of stain. Understood? Have you seen those tie-dye t-shirts? Have you seen how they are made? Tie-dye t-shirts?
Yes, wrapped around and then dipped in paint.
Huh. So you might have seen in the t-shirts where there is a lot of, if you tie it a lot in one point, like a lot of fabric you've taken and tie it tight, and then you've taken small fabric and tied it tightly. So which one will take up most stain? The one that is tied tightly or the one that is loosely tied?
Tightly.
Tightly one. Same goes for here. Since the euchromatin region, they are sparsely arranged and loosely arranged, they do not take up a lot of stain and they stain very light. Whereas the heterochromatin, since they are very close, so they will stain darkly. Understood? But out of
Ma'am,
these two groups,
stain. Ma'am, what is staining?
staining is like taking up the stain, like you are coloring them, you are staining them to visualize them. Right? Like for example, nucleus. Nucleus takes up a lot of stain because it is a bigger structure. So same way,
Ma'am,
euchromatin will
stain is a literal color or ink.
stain is like a dye. DYE. It's actually like a dye when you will be doing experiments further in higher classes. So you will like for to visualize anything under the microscope, you have to use a stain because our eyes can see color. Our eyes cannot see something that is colorless. So we color
Yes.
things so as to see them better under the light in the microscope. So same way when you color the chromatin, the part of the chromatin that will take up a lot of color and look very, very dark under the microscope, that would be heterochromatin. And the one that doesn't take up a lot of stain and looks very light under the microscope, that would be the euchromatin. Hmm?
Yes,
But
ma'am.
out of these two regions, euchromatin is said to be transcriptionally active, meaning this is the part of the chromatin that can undergo transcription. Transcription is what? Forming RNA from DNA. Understood?
Yes.
Heterochromatin region is transcriptionally inactive because it is such tight association.
Ma'am, what is the use of RNA?
It makes proteins.
So, ma'am, only specific, only like a small region makes all the protein.
No, small region makes the RNA, and then that RNA makes protein.
Yes.
Understood? So this was about the whole entire packaging. Do you have any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now you note down. Then we'll move forward and talk about how did people search for the genetic material. Like right now we know that DNA is a genetic material. Some organism can have RNA as their genetic material, but no one knew it earlier that what would be the genetic material. How is it happening? So we'll see that. Okay. But first, you know,
Ma'am, done. I'm done. Ma'am, above this, what was one base pair is present in every turn?
One, only 10 base pairs are present in every turn.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, base pair means like this A, T, C, G, right?
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, does one base pair contain set of three or just two?
One base pair is like adenine is one base pair. Then adenine will be pairing up with thymine, so that is one base pair. Pair means a pair. So one adenine with thymine is one pair, guanine with cytosine is another pair, like that.
Ma'am, so what is codon?
Codon is a triplet. It is a sequence. This is a codon. GUG, this is a codon. Codon is a sequence of triplets, which we will study later on. It is different from base pair.
I'm done. Ma'am, what is semi-conservative that you've written here?
Uh, Semi-conservative is the nature of DNA replication. Don't worry about this. I will talk to you about this when DNA replication. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'll
Ma'am,
tell you in a nutshell, like since the newly synthesized DNA has one strand from parent and like parental DNA and one new, this is called a semi-conservative. Okay.
master DNA to copy DNA. Ma'am, which one is the master? Like the parent one?
It's here I can't show you in the picture, but like the DNA that is undergoing the replication process, that DNA will become the master DNA.
And ma'am, what is copy DNA? The one that is made?
Huh, the newly synthesized.
Ma'am, done.